Good morning and happy Sabbath once again. Today's story is still talking about Elijah. And the title of the lesson is Food for One More. And that person, that one more, is going to be Elijah. The story is found in 1 Kings chapter 17, verses 7 through 24. If you add 17 plus 7 is 24. Just to remember the number. So it's chapter 17, verses 7 through 24. And in here we find two stories. The first one is the story that starts in actually verse 7, because last time we read verses 1 through 6. Now we start in verse 7. And it tells us in there that the brook that he was getting the water from had dried up. So he had to leave the place that he was being fed by the birds and he was getting the water. And God sent him to a place that was called Zarephath. This is found in Sidon. And he told him to go find a widow in there and that she would provide food and water for him. So he went there, and as he entered the place, he saw this widow that was collecting some dry branches, and immediately he asked her to bring him a cup of water. And as she was going to her home to get the water, he said, "Oh, and also bring me a small bread to eat." And she's like, "Sir, I don't have any bread. I only have a handful of flour and a little bit of oil. And I was going to go, as you can see, I have the branches. I was going to go make a simple bread, cook it, and eat it with my son, and then wait until we die." That meant that she had no food whatsoever. And Elijah, he answered to her, he said, "First, make me a small bread, and then you can go ahead and do whatever you need to do. Continue with what you were going to do." And the lady just couldn't believe it, but she went ahead and did this for him. And Elijah told her, when she said, when he told her to do that for him first, he said, "And the Lord has told me that your container of flour and the container of oil will never run dry. So just prepare that for me, and then you can go ahead and make your own meal, and you will never have any lack of flour and oil." And so she did it. And sure enough, the lady had, for as long as, because this was going to happen until God sent the rain back to the land. So when the rain came back, she didn't, she could find food easily. She didn't need to have this being provided by God. But then comes the second story. And the second story is found in verse 17. And this happened, you will see the picture there. This happened, it involved her child. And the lady one day found the baby that was not breathing. The baby had died, or the child. It doesn't say the age. In the picture, is a baby. I always imagine a little, maybe a toddler or an older baby or an older child, but it doesn't say whether it's a baby or an older son. But when she carried the baby to Elijah, and said, what is going on? Is it God trying to tell me, did he send you to remind me of my sin? She must have done something that she felt guilty about, because she said, are you reminding me of my sin? And that's why the breath of life has gone away from my child. And Elijah asked for the baby or the child and took that child to the second floor where was his room and prayed to God. Pray with all his heart and ask God to return the breath of life to this child. And he kind of covered him with his body 3 times. And at the 3rd time, the baby or the child started breathing again. So he brought the child back down to the mother and gave it to the mother and said, God has given the child, the breath of life again. And so in the last verse of this story, the woman tells him, now by this I know that you are a man of God, and that the word of the Lord in your mouth is the truth. This story tells us that God wants the best for us. He cares for us. But we have to have faith, and we have to talk to God. We can't just expect things to happen and we never even pray to God, right? We need to have a life with God. We can't just go to him when we are desperate. But daily we need to have a relationship with God. And the memory verse, before I forget, is found in 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 10. And it says, the God of all grace will himself restore you and make you strong. So remember, God is able. God wants to help us, wants to give us the strength to do the things that we want to do, to praise his name. And so don't forget, trust in the Lord. It's not just a person, he is God. And if something happens or doesn't happen, we have to leave it in his hands, because only he knows what is the best thing for whatever is it that we are asking him for. And so that's the story for today. There was always food for one more. Even though the lady thought, no, this is the last meal, no, God had other plans. And God provided for the widow, for that child, and for the prophet Elijah. I hope you like the story. Continue to read the Bible. Beautiful stories in 1 Kings. Many, many stories. Until next week, have a wonderful week and a beautiful, beautiful and blessed Sabbath day. Goodbye.